What's up, everybody? This is Josh with another Yu-Gi-Oh! Discussion video, and today we're talking about ban lists. Not a specific ban list, but rather the process of ban lists in general, and how to tackle specific decks, and how like the OCG handles decks differently than the TCG. It's been a discussion that I had live on stream last week, and it probably would have ended up on the Plus channel, but we're a little light on main channel videos this week because I'm about to leave to Spain for the Master Duel Invitational. So I decided to bring it up on the main channel because I want to hear you guys' opinion on it as well. And once again, hope you enjoyed the discussion. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comments down below. Without further ado, let's begin and hope you enjoy. With this ban list, and with some of the other recent ban lists that we've gotten, also mainly the OCG ban list, which we haven't looked at on stream, but I have made a reaction to it off stream yesterday because I did want it to go up on the Plus channel. But those recent changes to TCG and to OCG and Master Duel ban lists, I've been thinking to myself, I want to make a little discussion happen about different approaches to handle certain problems or certain powerful decks in Yu-Gi-Oh! Because I think at this point it's become very clear. I mean, if it hasn't been clear for a long time, but it's pretty clear that the OCG and the TCG and also Master Duel have different ways of approaching balancing via the ban list. You know, there's different approaches, and this is something that I realized while I was talking about the OCG ban list off stream, is like we are always referencing stuff like consistency hits and so on and so forth, and you guys know I'm not a big fan of consistency hits. I don't remember if we've ever actually talked about why I don't like them and what exactly I think they mean for like a trading card game from like a game design perspective. What exactly a consistency is, what it means, and so on and so forth. I want to do a little bit of a game design like deep dive now and talk about that sort of thing, because this is something that the OCG has done very differently than the TCG. I have both of their ban lists up here. One of the more recent examples and one of the best examples of this is how the OCG has handled Snake Eyes compared to the TCG, which in both formats right now, this does not go for Master Duel because Master Duel still has the Snake Eye deck at pretty high power level. But in both TCG and OCG, Snake Eyes is essentially gone, right? Snake Eyes is essentially not present in the metagame anymore, despite both games handling the engine very, very differently. And I'm just bringing up the most recent metagame report for the OCG right now. There's no Snake Eyes anywhere on here, right? Snake Eyes is not really a thing in the OCG at the moment. And this is despite them not actually banning original Sinful Spoils or Flamberge. It's not on here. None of those cards are on here. Now, the way that the OCG has done it is via consistency hits. So they have brought Snake Eyes to a point where its power level is still essentially the same. It's just the fact that the deck has so few starters / extenders that you cannot really consistently perform those combos anymore unless you get very lucky, right? Like there's one Snake Eye Ash, one Snake Eyes Poplar, there is one Diabellstar the Black Witch, one Bonfire, one where is it? Wanted, the Seeker of Sinful Spoils. If there's more, feel free to throw them in chat right now, but those are the ones I'm immediately thinking of. Basically limiting essentially everything out of the archetype that can be considered a starter / extender is on the ban list, right? It is at 1, essentially. I don't know if there's any semi-limits for Snake Eyes, but no. There was at some point, I'm pretty sure they had some semi-limits, but they moved them up to 1. So this is how the OCG has decided to tackle their Snake Eyes deck, right? Like they've just put so many cards to 1 that eventually the deck became not consistent enough anymore to see competitive meta play. And they are currently, and this is why I was thinking of this, they are currently in the process of doing the exact same thing to Ryziel. Because with the most recent list, they've put Sword Ryziel to 1, they've put 7th Tachyon to 1, which total means now there's X Ryziel at 1, Sword Ryziel at 1, Bonfire at 1, 7th Tachyon at 1. Basically, a bunch of the consistency cards for Ryziel are just limited now. So they're just like doing this again, where they just put a whole bunch of cards to 1. I'm still seeing Sprite Jet and Sprite Blue at 1, by the way, here too. It's kind of the same thing that they did with Sprites, where they didn't ban a Sprite card. Like, they left Sprite Elf legal for a longer time. It's banned now, but Master Duel still has it, where like they just limit a lot of cards. They really like their limits slash semi-limits to just hurt a deck's win rate by just making it less consistent, right? And so I think this is one approach where if you compare that to the TCG ban list, right, they have taken a different approach. They've just said, like, you know what, original Sinful Spoiled Snake Eye, we just ban it, and we make the Snake Eye deck more balanced overall because it just loses that ability to access that card. And essentially, in terms of outcome, they've both kind of achieved their goal, right? Like, in both formats, on a competitive level, the Snake Eye deck is kind of gone. So now, why do I personally feel like consistency hits like these ones are not as good or as fun game design wise? And I wanna preface this by saying that this is 100% subjective. That is my opinion. There's no right or wrong here. I'm just trying to outline maybe the pros and cons of each individual way to do it. But you can't really argue with the fact that both of these ways can work. You know, both of these ways have effectively eliminated Snake Eyes from the top level competitive play. It's just that I prefer one way over the other, and I want to outline why. This is definitely something that is highly subjective. Now, my argument has always been that, like, there is a point in Yu-Gi-Oh! Where certain things, certain play patterns, certain end boards are, in my opinion, just a little bit too powerful and shouldn't be possible, even if they're like, they happen only sometimes. You know, like, I think what one Snake Eye Ash does is too much, or was too much, and it shouldn't happen like just a few percent less often. I think there's certain things in Yu-Gi-Oh! That just shouldn't happen, and Snake Eye Combo was definitely one of those things. And there's other examples of this where I feel like the majority of the community agrees on it. Like, for example, FTKs, right? FTKs, for the most part in Yu-Gi-Oh's history, have been handled on a ban list relatively quickly, despite them not having the highest play rates or win rates in the game, right? Like, there's been a lot of FTKs in the history of Yu-Gi-Oh that were never really, they weren't dominant, but they still realized that this kind of play pattern is not fun and shouldn't exist, right? Like, they still dealt with it. Like, there's a bunch of cards on the ban list that are here because of some random janky FTKs. Like, I'm thinking, where is it? Like, Phoenixian Cluster Amaryllis. There's like Tempest Magician. There's a whole bunch of FTK enablers here. There's more than that are just on here because they, in theory, allow decks to FTK, even if none of those FTKs were ever meta decks, right? Like, they were not like as powerful as Ryzeal or as powerful as Snake Eye or whatever, but they still decided to get rid of them because they realized the play pattern here is not good. You know, it's not healthy. And that is, I think, one of the main reasons why I dislike consistency hits, because by doing a consistency hit to a deck like Snake Eyes, you're not saying that this play pattern is too powerful. You're just saying this play pattern should happen less often, which is something that I personally disagree with. The other side of the thing, and I'm trying to look at it from a different perspective now, is why consistency hits. I think, at least this is me guessing what their reasoning is for consistency hits and why they think that they are sometimes warranted. And to an extent, I even agree with it, is the fact that they theoretically don't render decks unplayable for a fan base. You know, if someone is a huge fan of Pendulum or of whatever other deck there is, you know, like them not banning Heavy Metal Foes Electromite in the OCG, for example, is big for the Pendulum player base. You know, like, the deck is not doing well on a competitive level, but in theory it's still playable. And the same thing is technically true for Snake Eyes. You know, like, if you kill Snake Eyes, you do upset the Snake Eye player base. In, you know, if there is someone out there who just loves Snake Eye because they're like really into the lore or really like the artworks or really enjoy the play style, which definitely exists. Those are factors to the game of Yu-Gi-Oh, of course. You know, like, Yu-Gi-Oh is not only made up of like hyper competitive players who only look at decks through how they play the game. Like, there's also people that enjoy decks because of other reasons. And I think for those kind of players, I can understand that a consistency hit is much preferred over outright banning certain cards that make the deck unplayable, you know, which I can kind of understand, you know, I kind of understand if you're a huge fan of Snake Eye that you would rather have the OCG ban list than the TCG ban list, because you can at least still theoretically play the Snake Eye deck or the Pendulum deck or whatever else they've decided to just throw a whole bunch of consistency hits at. Ultimately, I think that overall there needs to be a balance between these two sides. Like I think killing a deck, you know, killing a deck is never something that you should aim for. Like I think this is something where there needs to be a better job at like card designing from a, like, you need to solve these problems before they exist, essentially. Like you never want to make a deck with the idea of, hey, eventually we're going to have to kill it because the thing it does is so powerful that even with consistency hits, it's still like unhealthy for the game, which is something that has happened with Snake Eyes in the OCG. You know, Snake Eyes was a deck that they've made that was way too powerful, so it had to like they had to take way too drastic measures, which is, you know, it's unfortunate that they had to kill Snake Eyes by banning original Sinful Spoils in the TCG, but it's still something that I get behind. You know, sometimes you make mistakes in game design, and I think just this consistency hit limiting around it is not great. So for Snake Eyes specifically, I was a big fan of them finally getting rid of a card. And I mean, at this point, like, there's a lot of cards that are banned. It is normal procedure for Yu-Gi-Oh that eventually, you know, cards get banned. But you will find that on this ban list, there's like, I think, I haven't run the numbers on this, but like, just statistically speaking, I think there is not that many archetypal cards on the ban list, because they try to leave archetypes intact. Of course, there are some. I'm not saying there's none, but for the most part, I'm scrolling this and I see a lot of more generic cards rather than archetypal cards, because I feel like they try to leave archetypes intact for their player bases. And then there's only the really, really, really outrageous ones like Tearlament, Kick Kalos, or whatever that are here. And then there's Fenrir for no reason at all, whatever, in the OCG. It actually surprises me a lot now thinking about all this that Kashtira Fenrir in the OCG out of all things was banned, but like full Snake Eye combo is fine to exist. Anyways, I don't know. I just wanted to get that out there. I just wanted to like talk about that because I'm kind of wondering what the best way is to handle these sort of situations. I think when a deck is overall just powerful but not super broken, which for me personally is something like, I think Ryziel is a good example for this, where it is the most powerful deck. It is a very, very good deck, but it is not like tier 0, like Tearlaments or Snake Eye combo kind of level broken in terms of what endboard it produces. For those kind of decks, I'm more inclined to say, yeah, consistency hits are fine, because consistency hits for Ryziel will impact its competitive success, but it will not actually kill the deck to the point where any Ryziel fan base will be super upset about it, because they can still play Ryziel. It's just less consistent, which I'm okay with. But on the other hand, when there's a deck like, I don't know, Snake Eyes, or a card like Kashtira or Rysart, I think those cards are like, eventually you're going to have to get rid of them. Because another reason why I find consistency hits frustrating is when you're playing against those decks, they create very, at least to me, and this is where I'm trying to hear if people feel the same way, it creates a lot of frustration when I'm playing against, let's use Kashtira as an example in Master Duel. Kashtira is a deck that was hit in Master Duel to a point where the deck is no longer a meta deck, because they have limited Kashtira Fenrir, they've limited their field spell, they've banned terraforming, there's 2 Kashtira unicorns only. So the deck, for all intents and purposes, is too inconsistent to actually be meta, right? Like, it's a playable deck in Master Duel, but it is not meta in Master Duel by any means. But whenever I play against it, and whenever they open Kashtira unicorn or Fenrir or the field spell, it feels like nothing has changed. It feels like all the reasons why people complained about Kashtira and why Kashtira wasn't fun to play against are suddenly back, and nothing has changed. And that's annoying to me. That's an annoying thing that I don't enjoy. I feel like the other way around, when the consistency hits do work, it doesn't even get you a rewarding win, at least from my perspective. If I beat Kashtira because they just didn't draw a playable Yu-Gi-Oh card in 3 turns because their deck has like 4 starters, of course I feel good because I won, but it's not really a rewarding experience either. Like, you're just winning against Snake Eyes because they didn't draw a Snake Eye card is like, it doesn't feel like a healthy decision, right? Like, I don't know. Like, of course you're going to be there like, yeah, take that, Kashtira, your inconsistent ass deck, you know, take that, you deserve to lose. But then ultimately the gameplay wasn't really that good, was it? Like, it's not really like you had an enjoyable game because your opponent just didn't draw a playable Kashtira card. Like, they summon Ogre and pass, and you're like, okay, well, this is what you get for playing Kashtira, I guess. I don't know. That's how I feel about consistency hits in general. Like, I think for some decks, they're fine. Majority of the time, I would prefer if they found ways to ban cards that are actually problematic and that make decks, like, because there are decks out there that you can ban cards from and they still function. Like, a very popular example that I find mind-blowing that they haven't done yet is they've decided to apply a whole bunch of consistency hits to Branded, for example, mainly in OCG and Master Duel, where it's like, you know, 1 Aluber, 1 Branded opening at some point, and so on and so forth, 1 Branded fusion, instead of just getting rid of friggin' Albion the Sanctifier Dragon, which would completely leave Branded playable, but they just haven't done it, you know? And I feel like this would be a ban that both sides would be happy with, you know? Like, the Branded players would be happy, I think, about losing Albion, because then their deck stays playable just at the... It's basically like, hey, you can still play Branded, but you have to agree to not floodgate your opponent type of deal, you know? Like, and I think hopefully most Branded players would take that deal. At least I'd imagine they would. Like, saying like, okay, yeah, I lose Sanctifier, but I can still play Branded for a long time, I think is what most people would agree to. And then from the other perspective, everyone who's annoyed by playing against Branded is most of the time annoyed because of locks like Albion the Sanctifier. And so I think that'd be a fair middle way of doing it. Another way, of course, that I mentioned earlier is hitting generic cards, which is another thing that I am very, very baffled by the OCG's unwillingness to hit more generic endboard pieces. And the same is true for Master Duel, which I think that was one of the biggest steps that the TCG has taken in recent years towards a better environment, just health for the game, is cards like, I'm looking at this and I'm like, there's so many cards on here that I am just mind blown that the OCG has not touched. You know, Appaloosa, Bow of the Goddess, still legal in both Master Duel and OCG. Sprite Elf, as much as I love sprites, like, so Baron the Fleur, Warlord Savage Dragon, so many cards that I feel like absolutely deserve to be banned. And the OCG has still, like, they just refuse to do it. I don't know. It confuses me. Savage is fine. Savage, out of those, is definitely the least problematic one, but I'm still not mad it's banned. I'm still not freaking mad that Savage Dragon is banned. I agree with you. Sprite Elf, Baron de Fleur, and Appaloosa are on a whole nother level, but still fine. It's still an Omni. It has an alt art. That's why Apple will never be hit. See, that's a conspiracy theory. I don't know if that's true. I do understand that, you know, people have spent money on alternate art Appaloosa, trying to pull it from those packs, and is only available for a limited time. I personally would find that a very, very weak justification. If it's also just not good for game balance. Like, if you release an alt art and then that card is just safe from ever being banned, it'd just be stupid. It would just be stupid. Why did someone just subscribe with the name Shmoshuajit? Why'd you make that account? That was something I wanted to just get a little bit of a rant going because of how recent... it was just something I've been thinking about with the recent ban list updates. How different these ban lists have become over the course of the last years, and how much more... I personally vibe with the TCG concept a lot more, which is a shame because obviously Master Duel is also a big part of my life. You know, I play it a lot. I still enjoy it a lot, but I do think it could be more enjoyable. I want to hear what people have to say about it.